A little over 2 years ago, I had an idea for a podcast, one where I'd study a director's entire career, one film at a time. Now, this idea was nascent to say the least. Nonetheless, I shared it with my good friend Keir. We had just left an event at one of our favorite bookstores, Exile and Bookville, and we were standing beneath the Chicago L tracks when I shared my idea.
And I said, I do that. Or at least that's what I think I said. I don't remember really needing to think about it, though. We were still relatively new friends, and I do remember being very honored to be asked. After all, you're a very accomplished writer in film and comics who's worked with a lot of talented people, many of whom have a stronger background in film than I do. And so I was, come to think of it, Mike, why did you ask me?
That's a great question. Thank you for the compliments. I mean, you're also, for people who don't know, Keir is a tremendous writer who does great stuff on his own and middle grade fiction, James Patterson collaborations, just wonderful stuff. But that's not the reason I asked Keir. It could have been, but really, it really came down to the movie conversations that we'd had since the time we met. Despite us being writers, the both of us, as much as I can recall, most of our conversations, we seldom talked about books or even writing, really. Like we mostly talked about movies, and from that I knew how much you love film. So it seemed like, I don't know, it seemed like that was a fit. And hey, here we are. I was right.
You were right, and that's also like you've shared one of the big secrets about writers is that when they get together, so many of them don't talk about books; they talk about movies and TV. Anyway, I remember at the time just thinking like this seems like fun, and so I said yes, and I didn't overthink it, and I don't regret it. And even though this podcast has been a massive time commitment, it is one of the things that I really look forward to doing most, which is more proof that my life philosophy is correct. It's a good idea to say yes to new experiences.
Yeah, I agree. I have a similar philosophy where it's like, I tell this to my kids and even people that kids that I coach or what, have taught or whatever. It's very simple. If there's something that you don't like doing, for God's sakes, don't do it. Life is varied. There's so many things you could be spending your time doing. And life is short. So if there's something that you're not enjoying, don't do it. But if there are things that you do enjoy, then those are what you should be pursuing and committing your time to, such as doing a podcast about Steven Soderbergh.
I'm picturing some of the kids you coach in soccer going to their teachers and with their unfinished algebra homework and saying, "But Coach Mike said, if I don't enjoy it, I don't have to do it."
Well, that sounds like the teacher's problem. Instead of like, who the hell is Coach Mike? But no, I mean, it's like, why spend your time, not doing something that you enjoy? There's so many different things that you could be doing, So if you find something you love, that you enjoy, you get pleasure from, even just for the simple fact that like, I enjoy it. Whatever you get out of it, if it's just pleasure, like, hey, that's a really great thing. Yeah. So going back to our own podcast and our origin story, I guess this is Keir. What I shared with you under that L track, it was very cold. I remember that. This is a winter night, very cold, and we're still staying out in the cold talking about this. It was really a kernel of an idea, like at best. Like, in fact, I know the director I had in mind was not Steven Soderbergh. I was thinking, I can't remember exactly what I was thinking. I feel like there's a few ideas. I know we batted around a few ideas, but Soderbergh wasn't even one of the first.
He wasn't even on the initial list. I wish I would be curious. I don't remember who you first came up with. I would be curious to know.
I don't know. Ken Russell. No, it was not Ken.
Oh man, that would be a very different podcast.
That'd be a different season. That would be something. I don't know how long I would make it. He didn't make that many movies, but boy, are they.
He didn't make that many.
They are movies, thoroughly.
They are certainly movis.
But the point is that we made this thing together. Together, Keir, you and I are the filmographers, and we developed and made this thing step by step. We did it together.
And for the past year, we've explored Steven Soderbergh's entire career. I guess I am to blame for maybe making that suggestion and picking somebody who made so damn many films and is continuing to make them at rapid pace. But we dug in from his humble beginnings as an all-star youth baseball player turned cinephile, thanks to the encouragement of his father.
Yeah, to his early days as a fledgling filmmaker, cutting his teeth by working on game shows, believe it or not, making short films, and even directing a Yes concert video, which we did do a commentary on that's on our Patreon. So that does exist. Not only does the Yes concert video exist, also a commentary track from us exists. So in a world of improbables, that's there's a few
obscurity piled upon obscurity. The director's commentary to the Steven Soderbergh Yes concert film. But yes, that's an excellent reason to join our Patreon, and so you'll have access to that enjoyable commentary. And so then, of course, all that is before the making of Sex, Lies, and Videotape, the movie that arguably started the modern independent filmmaking movement. And then, of course, as mentioned, we have covered in not exhaustive, but sometimes exhausting detail, the 35 feature films that followed.
Yeah, we watched every single Soderbergh movie. We looked at the movies he came close to making but didn't. We even explored the many, many hours of television he directed. More like Keir explored, to be honest. I kind of ducked out of that one. A little duck and weave from that. Let's see, what else? We watched every director's commentary track that we could find. We read, every Soderbergh-related book and read countless articles, listened to countless interviews, podcasts, YouTube, whatever. You didn't say exhaustive, but pretty damn close, I would say. And now here we are. Our journey is coming to an end.
But that doesn't mean the Filmographers Podcast is coming to an end. Far from it. We're already hard at work on a new season focusing on a new director, and we have lots of fun stuff planned in the months to come, which, spoiler alert, may even include a little more Soderbergh material we didn't get to.
When will it not? But for now, we're going to take one last trip through Soderbergh's filmography, taking a look at what we've learned, what we've enjoyed, and what's ahead for the man that we consider to be one of the most fascinating and important directors in all of American cinema.
And it wouldn't be Hollywood or movies if we didn't present our year in review with an awards show. Yes, April is awards season here on the Filmographers, and we welcome you to the first and surely only Soderbergh Awards, or as I call them, the Sodies, even though that makes me sound like a Depression-era newsboy ordering a sarsaparilla for my friends.
It does, but we're going to roll with it anyway. We're going to go all in on Sodies. And as a matter of fact, we have 11 Sodies, 11 Sodie categories, 12 winners, and a lot of Soderbergh history to explore along the way. So join us as the Filmographers presents the Soderbergh Awards, or if you'd like to call them, the Sodies.
And before we dive in, I want to take a moment to thank Apple Podcast user Richie of Rich, I love that username, for the following review. Headlined, "This Sodercast is a home run," Richie wrote, "Fantastic look at a fantastic filmmaker with much sharp insight and humor along the way. Can't wait to discover who their season 2 director will be." Thank you so much, Richie. Reviews like this really mean the world to us, and you won't have to wait long because we will be announcing our season 2 director pretty soon.
Yes, we will be, and it's going to be very exciting. I'm thrilled about our selection. In addition to reviews, which again, thank you, Richie. We're so grateful to our Patreon supporters like Mona Betancourt, who recently became a member. Our Patreon is the only place where you can find all our episodes, video and audio, as well as extras that aren't available anywhere else, like our upcoming audio commentary track for The Good German, which we will be recording next week and will be releasing sometime in the month of April, I would say. You can find us at patreon.com/the Filmographers Podcast.
Mike, I'm excited to announce the winners of the Sodies, but before we do that, I want to ask you a question. Has doing this podcast changed your opinion of Soderbergh in any way? And if so, how?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great question, and I'm going to ask you the same. Absolutely. I mean, it's impossible not to. We've learned so much. We learned more than I really ever anticipated. And And I've thought about this a lot, and I'm trying to narrow down because I can just talk about the breadth of knowledge that I've gained through this. And through what I've learned, it's really shaped just my understanding of Soderbergh as a filmmaker. So obviously that has affected how I perceive his movies. Like Black, I had a different idea of like Black Bag, for example. Now that I would not have had that perspective had we not done this. But really what I really love and I appreciate so much about him amongst many things that I appreciate about him is just his independent spirit. Like I love how, it's often thought of with Soderbergh, and he has dispelled this himself. I think we've both heard him talk about this, that the idea that he does the one for me, one for them,
Yes.
and he says, no, it's not how it works. It's all for me, basically. And what he means is that, like, I'm always choosing the movies that I want to make. And obviously, as we're going to talk about, and he's making them in the way that he wants to make them. He's never slumming it. He's never like, oh, geez, I'll do Ocean's 14, but you've got to make Bubble 2, like he doesn't do that. He did Ocean's 12, as we discovered, for example, because he wanted to make Ocean's 12. And we may not love Ocean's 12, but he clearly made the movie he wanted to make, this like weird Euro meta heist flick that was anything other than a retread of Ocean's 11. So warts and all, love it or hate it, it's definitely still very much his movie. And the same thing goes for Bubble. Ocean's 12 is no less Soderbergh's movie than Bubble. And throughout that, he's maintained the spirit of like not independence in the sense that he's self-financing his movies all the time or that he is always making low budget movies or anything like that. He is doing the movie that he wants to do and the way he wants to do it and with the people he wants to do it with. I'm sure there's limitations. He doesn't always get the things that he wants because he's, reliant on other people's schedule, availability, interests, etc. But like he made Kimmy because that's the movie he wanted to make. He made Presents because that's the movie he wanted to make for $3 million for Presents, and then 2 months later, Black Bag comes out, which reportedly has a budget of $50 million. We've both talked about this. I don't believe it. I don't think it costs that much. I think there's bad information out there, but it's obviously still a bigger budget, slick, star-studded affair that, again, we both adored. Please, please go see that movie. But that ability that he has to constantly say, I'm going to make these movies that I want to make, how I want to make them. Some are going to cost 3 million, some are going to cost 30 million. And I'm just going to find a way to make them, find a way to get them seen, distributed. And that's how I'm going to do things. And I admire that so deeply, that there's somebody who's not like, well, I got to go make the Marvel movie now. I got to make some money. So I got to rattle off 3 or 4 Marvel/Disney movies and then return to my roots of doing whatever I did beforehand and try to reclaim that magic. Like he's never had to do that. And granted, he grew up in a different system, in a different era, and cut his teeth at a different time. But like he has always avoided that pitfall. And I love that about him. I wish more directors had that savviness that he does, because part of it is just his business savvy that we'll talk about, that he just knows how to get movies made and is flexible and like how he does it. And he's done it a lot of ways, which we're going to get to in the Sodies. But there's something just so deeply admirable to that in my mind. And I will always be a firm defender, not that he needs much defending of Soderbergh, but at least, defending the idea that he is one of the capital the American filmmakers, from ever, all time, not just modern. I think he is, you stack up the greatest American filmmakers, Steven Soderbergh's name must be in that list.
Wow. Well said. Rousing. I don't know how to add to that. Yeah, I certainly learned so much about him. I considered myself relatively knowledgeable about him going into this, but I had only watched about a dozen of his movies, which, is a third of his output. And I'd seen a lot more of his early movies than his later ones, interestingly. I'm one of the few, the proud, the people who saw Sex, Lies, and Videotape, Kafka, King of the Hill, and The Underneath. The Underneath being his fourth film, being the point in his career where he had this epiphany that you were talking about, that he doesn't want to do anything that he doesn't want to do. Like, he doesn't want to make one for them. He only wants to make them for him. Some people are so success driven that they would have taken an experience like that and just tried to polish the turd, or they would have tried to make the best they could out of the movie that they disliked, and then gone out looking for another project that would have been a status project with a budget and stars attached that would have enhanced their own stature. And he did the exact opposite thing. He went out and made Schizopolis. He made basically a home movie with friends on a tiny, tiny budget in his hometown. And that changed the course of his entire career. And I continue to find that so inspiring. As we said more earlier on in the podcast, one of the reasons that looking at Soderbergh's career is so fascinating is because it's helping us learn how to approach a career in the arts and how to choose projects. Because he's kind of as you said, they're not all winners, but he is pretty great at choosing projects, and he's pretty great at choosing collaborators, right? Which is equally important. And I guess maybe we have a little bit of that since you have a little bit of that since you chose me to collaborate with you on this podcast. It's certainly been a wonderful collaboration. But I just feel like he learned so much early on that some people beat their heads against the wall for a whole career and don't take away the insight that he managed to take away as a very young filmmaker, very early on in his career. And it's enabled him to have, I know his career has had frustrations and some failures, but for the most part, an extraordinarily successful career because he follows his own North Star. Mm-hmm. And so, I had, going back to kind of what I thought of him before we started, I had thought of Soderbergh as this cerebral filmmaker who liked dabbling in the crime genre and had an ability to make hits like Ocean's 11 and Aaron Brockovich. And although my favorite film, The Limey, was fairly experimental, I had never seen his most daring experiments like Bubble and Che. And I also didn't know how technically experimental he was. I knew nothing about his journey from being a more formal, traditional filmmaker to becoming a fast-working guerrilla who operates his own camera and edits as he goes. And all of that has led me to see Soderbergh, like you, not only as a good and important filmmaker, but a major one, one whose legacy includes not only an amazing catalog of films, but a considered approach to the act of filmmaking that I believe deserves to be taught in film schools. I don't always love all of his choices, I'll say yet again, but I love that he makes those choices. And I also love that he seems to be a stand-up guy who treats the people around him with respect. Studying Soderbergh's career has given me lots of food for thought about how to make a living and a life in the arts.
That was really, wow. That was really great, man. That's so well said, honestly. Like, I love that. And I love that you like really point out something that man really resonates with me. Like, that The Underneath didn't break him. I think a lot of people would have probably walked away, or been forced out, or just didn't get another gig. And it's remarkable what he turned that failure into. It's so impressive. And, and also he just seems like a good guy, respects people. He has repeat business, so no, that was really well said, man. That was great.
Thank you so much. Now, shall we get to the Sodies?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how we award Soderbergh now after what we've said about
it. Our praise is award enough.
That's yes, the end. All right, guys.
Join us next week.
Yeah, but you didn't wear your tux, Keir. No tux today. Not even a tux T-shirt.
No, but I did wear my Steven Soderbergh T-shirt. Does that count for anything?
That does. Wow.
Those who are listening on the audio only, I'm wearing my Directed by Steven Soderbergh T-shirt.
It looks great. Okay,
you.
I'll forgive the tux. I've got, for those who also listen to audio, the Filmographers Podcast T-shirt, which We have a cafe press. You can start getting our merch. We got t-shirts. We got a mug, which I'm going to order today, as a matter of fact. So we've got good stuff over there on our cafe press website, or the web store, in which you can just search Filmographers Podcast and you'll find it. It's pretty cool. Good stuff. Good stuff like this. If you just visualize it, if you're in audio.
And another great way to get Filmographers merch too, of course, is to become a paying Patreon member. You can become a Patreon member for free, but if you give us a little bit of change every month, you'll get some cool merch there as well. Unfortunately, no tuxedo t-shirts, but we're working on it.
No, we've got some creative ideas. So, all right, we're both pretty casual, like our man
Yeah.
Soderbergh. So, Keir, what do you think?
So Soderbergh, you never really see him posing on the red carpet with people asking him, "Who are you wearing?" So I think we're dressed appropriately.
I feel good about this. Yeah.
So our first category, like our casual dress code, is very fitting to Soderbergh. He's a man who loves to experiment and is defined by the unexpected choices he's made over the course of his 30-plus year career. So the first Sodie is for best use of an experimental camera. And the nominees are Che, Presence, and Unsane.
Now, I'm sure our listeners remember, but to recap Soderbergh's usage of these cameras, in Che, he used the first ever red camera. In Unsane, he used an iPhone, though I want to point out again, he wasn't the first person to shoot a feature film on an iPhone. That's often, I don't know, it's kind of like an urban myth. Unsane was not the first one. There was others before that, including the wonderful Tangerine. We were just talking about Sean Baker recently. And then in Presence, he strapped a camera to his body and played the role of the presence.
Yeah, I wonder if that kind of urban myth about Soderbergh being first just kind of points to the fact that he was one of the higher profile people to use an iPhone to shoot a movie, which, I mean, I guess you got to give him credit for helping popularize the idea that, hey, if you don't have a lot of money, there are cheaper ways to go about making your movies.
Definitely. Yeah, agreed.
And the winner is Che. This was a very close one for the judges being Mike and me. Because, after all, making a feature film with an iPhone, even though he wasn't the first, is still radical and risky. And the camera work and Presence is absolutely terrific. We loved that, loved the way it was shot. But I think in choosing a lightweight digital camera for Che, Soderbergh really set himself on the path that led to those two later movies. And no doubt his use of the red camera boosted that company and helped lead other filmmakers in that direction too.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just an important decision. Like you said, I think you nailed it, from him being such a high profile director. We think of him now, defined by these choices that he's made, of making small movies and weird movies and things like that. But at the time, I mean, Che is not that far removed from like the Ocean's movies and Aaron Brockovich and Solaris and things like that. So he's still a like Hollywood Oscar winner. Not that these things have changed, it's taken away, but he's still hot on the heels of that. So to be like, I'm going to use this experimental camera that nobody's used before, is risky and bold and important. And let's also point out that like also kind of insane, because like, we won't recap it totally because we talk about this in the episode, but like him going out to the jungle, like literally the jungle, and bringing this camera that like, and there's many people, we saw the interviews that were like, I don't know if this is going to work. Like people working on the movie are like, we're not sure. Like if this thing breaks down, we're in the jungle. There's no plan B really. This thing there's problems with it overheating, the batteries. There were issues with it. This was not proven. This was not stable. And like for him to do that. Now, Che, I think we can agree, again, listen to our episode on it, was probably the hardest experience in Soderbergh's career, directly, led to his, it's not the only thing that led to his retirement, but it sure did help him get there. But like him making this decision, not only to use a camera, but the conditions in which he made Che is bold, brave, and kind of nuts.
I like that. Bold, brave, and kind of nuts. That's our man. That's our hero, Soderbergh.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike, give us the second category of the Sodies.
Okay, our second category is, and this is related pretty directly to our first, best use of Mark Cuban's money. And the nominees are The Girlfriend Experience and Everything is Going Fine. And finally, Bubble.
And as we discussed extensively in those films' individual episodes, Soderbergh signed a 6-film deal with HDNet, a cable satellite station part of Mark Cuban and Todd Wagner's 2029 Entertainment. Foreshadowing Soderbergh's later experiments with VOD releases, these films were to be released in theaters, on TV, and on DVD more or less simultaneously. And while they were made with Mark Cuban's money, it wasn't very much money. Soderbergh conceived them as low budget, site specific films with non professional actors. And Bubble, about a small town murder, really did fit those criteria. The Girlfriend Experience did feature a professional actor in porn star Sasha Grey, and Everything is Going Fine broke the mold as a documentary about Soderbergh's friend and collaborator Spalding Gray.
All right, so the winner is, I feel like we should have envelopes, but
Yes.
see, most of this is audio. We'll pretend I'll crumple some paper, make a paper noise here. The winner is, for best use of Mark Cuban's money, is Bubble. Yeah, we both love this movie. I listened to the episode, but we just, it's a movie neither one of us had seen. And it's a movie that I'm so grateful that I have. It is remarkable. It is so. I think I said this before. It reminds me of Gates of Heaven, the Errol Morris film, and Roger Ebert said it best, where he said that he called that movie bottomless. He's like, I've seen this movie dozens of times. He's like, I don't think I've ever gotten to the bottom of it. I don't think I've ever fully understood all the depths and layers that are happening here. And I think of similar terms, and it's sort of similar subject matter in a way, is like the the people that it's talking about and focusing on and capturing. Gates of Heaven and Bubble have a little bit of overlap, but Bubble, I feel like, has so many layers and depth and mysteries to it that I can watch it over and over and keep getting new experiences from. And I think that's what great movies should do. Not all great movies must do it, but great movies do that. And Bubble does that. It's a quirky, unique, really great film that, while so different, still makes a whole lot of sense in Soderbergh's filmography. I'm glad I saw it. It's a wonderful film. I wish more people had seen it, but that doesn't mean that more people can't see it. It's available. I urge people to find it, watch it. It's worth watching.
Yeah, it's the kind of movie that's a secret handshake among certain kind of Soderbergh fans. We know our friend, the writer Daniel Kraus, like that's his favorite Soderbergh movie. We've got an interview that's going to be releasing in a week or two after this episode. We're talking to Nathan Deming and Adam Stunkel, a couple of filmmakers. We're talking about their small budget film set in small town Wisconsin. And when we were talking about Soderbergh, they both just lit up. And when we talked about Bubble, they one of them turned around and said he had it on the shelf right behind him. So I suspect that if you give it a try, it may not be for you, but it's definitely a movie that makes a lot of Soderbergh fans light up.
Yeah, I agree. Please give it a shot. It's worth it. It's only 90 minutes. It's such an experience. Now, before we get into our next award, Keir, I think we should discuss briefly our upcoming appearances.
We absolutely should. And one is just around the corner. We're going to be introducing Out of Sight at the historic Music Box Theater in Chicago on April 7th. That's less than 1 week from today.
Correct. And it's going to be showing in 35 millimeter, which is a real treat. That's going to be a lot of fun. And for those who don't know, the Music Box Theater is a historic, remarkable venue. And if you can't come and see us, go see a movie there anyway. It's a cinephile's dream. It's worth the trip. It is a movie palace destination.
Yeah, and you can get tickets at musicboxtheater.com. They spell theater the old-fashioned way with the R-E instead of E-R, but you can also just Google the words Music Box Theater and throw in Chicago if you want. You'll find it. You can get your tickets in advance. And our Music Box Theater screening of Out of Sight is not all. We have a second event just weeks after that.
Correct. We're going to introduce Traffic, the movie Soderbergh won a Best Director Oscar for, at the Lake Street Theater in Oak Park, Illinois on April 23rd.
The Music Box is just a Chicago treasure, and the Lake Street Theater is also a fantastic venue Really cool place to watch a movie. And it happens to be Mike's local movie house. And I've been a few times and I love it as well.
Yeah, so visit classiccinemas.com for tickets for that event. You'll have to go through the drop down, find the Lake Street drop down menu for their theaters, find the Lake Street Theater. You'll be able to navigate and get tickets for traffic there.
And please, if you are thinking about going, do get your tickets in advance. That's very helpful to us and helpful to the theater owners. People always like to know a little bit how many people are going to be there. Getting back to the Sodies, we were on the topic of Soderbergh's experimental release strategies. So let's jump ahead and announce the winners of Best Streaming Originals. This was the time in Soderbergh's career when he started making movies for Netflix and HBO. The former include High Flying Bird and The Laundromat, and the latter include Behind the Candelabra, Let Them All Talk, No Sudden Move, and Kimmy.
With the exception of The Laundromat, which we didn't love, this was an amazing run of movies, and it's too bad they didn't get theatrical releases, even though Soderbergh didn't seem to care that they didn't.
He did not. He did not. And the winner, and this one was, those are some excellent films, but the judges were in unanimous agreement on this one. Kimmy. Kimmy is a movie we did an episode on recently and talked about and raved about. I can't get enough. It's such a delightful film, and it's such a wonderful kind of update and homage to Rear Window, but it's very original as well. The performances are terrific. The look is fantastic. The pacing is excellent. I just can't say enough about Kimmy.
Yeah, I mean, I can just praise it all day long. It's just this fun Rear Window adjacent, quick thriller. Zoe Kravitz is wonderful in it. Like you said, the look is great. And I love this period, this Soderbergh period that he's in, these 90-minute, just firecrackers of movies, from Kimmy to Presents to now Black Bag, that he is 90 and out. And I truly love that. And you know what? It doesn't feel, I don't know. I've all these movies, I've never felt anything's missing, and Kimmy especially. I think it's exactly the length it needs to be. It's fun. The antagonist, the bad guy who's pursuing her. I forget his name. Is so much fun and so kind of weird and quirky. It's such a nice wrinkle to it, and coming out of COVID, really kind of captures that like, ooh, we coming outside again feeling really well, and not without belaboring it. It's great. I love Kimmy. I just love that movie. I'd love to see it on the big screen. That's one I wish.
Oh yeah, that would be so great on the big screen. And one of two, I would say, really essential movies referencing Rear Window. The other one being Brian De Palma's Body Double, which I rewatched again the other night. Very different movies, but movies that really have a lot of fun with Hitchcock.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, one season we will do the De Palma season. Boy, will we.
Oh boy.
It'll also become the Hitchcock season.
Interesting idea. Interesting idea. So one of the themes that we talked about in our episodes on the streaming movies is that unfortunately, a lot of people didn't see those movies, or not as many people saw them as should have seen them. And so speaking of movies, many people missed our next category.
Our next category is Best Soderbergh movies you probably never saw. Interesting category. We have a strong field of candidates, I'd say, and those candidates are Schizopolis, Bubble, The Good German, and Let Them All Talk.
Yeah, very strong nominees.
Okay, the winner by I think you wrote this line. I love this line, by Tobey Maguire Eyelash, appropriately, is The Good German. The Good German. I mean, Keir, I will be as brief as possible. This is, as much as I love Bubble, and I do love Bubble and Schizopolis, if there's one movie that I truly am so grateful that I now have seen that I hadn't seen, I mean, hell, I bought the movie poster, original movie poster, double-sided Good German movie poster that I'm still got to get a frame to hang up. I adore The Good German. I just think it's such a missed movie. It's such a movie that was poorly marketed. And again, this is all in our episode, but to get the cliff notes, you could say, it's was sold as this like Casablanca homage in a way, like this, like Soderbergh going back to the era of that type of silver screen, golden era Hollywood, and making this romantic war movie. And The Good German is absolutely anything but. It is so deeply cynical, and in a smart way, but it is bleak. It is cynical. It is a little just nasty enough, and it's so smart about what a real post-war um, conditions and place would look like. It's not about peace. It's about preparing for the next conflict and gobbling up, land and power and resources and whatever you can, and preparing for the next, struggle for power. And that's really what the heart of Good German is. It's got terrific performances. George Clooney, I would argue, at his best. I mean, it's hard to say. Kate Blanchett is just great in everything, but she is
Yeah.
really great here. Tobey Maguire is awesome. There's other supporting characters, actors who are wonderful. Soderbergh shot the hell out of it in black and white, used camera lenses, again, bold and kind of nuts, used camera lenses from that time. Had to call Warner Brothers, I believe, was the studio behind it,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. Because they did Casablanca as well. Used um, camera lenses that were used from the time. I think is specifically Michael Curtis. I always forget if it's Curtis or Curtiz. He's the man who directed Casablanca and White Christmas and all Breaking Point and all sorts of other amazing studio films. Um, Uniquely made, wonderfully acted, deeply powerful, cynical. It's a great movie. One of my favorite Soderberghs. I think it's just so great.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you have the last word on that one because 100% agree, and I think you're particularly passionate about that one. But your amazing research for that episode really, I think, helped unlock a lot of brilliant stuff about that movie, and makes an argument for it being considered, with a lot more respect and appreciation than it has received so far. But we're going to continue to try to, wave the flag for that movie, particularly when we record our own commentary, not our director's commentary, but the filmographer's commentary on The Good German, which we'll be recording next week, as we've said, and releasing probably in April. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, it's a movie also inexplicably getting a 4K release, which both of us, when we saw that, we were like, is this for real? Like,
Yeah,
who was asking for this? I mean, we were, but
we were asking for it.
yeah, I don't know who else, but yeah, be on the lookout for that, for the 4K release.
Yeah.
But Keir, I've proposed that we talk to, one of these places we're doing, Music Box, Lake Street, somewhere, Kimmy, Good German double feature. It's got to happen, I think.
Wow. Yeah. Love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. The next category is Best Screw You Hollywood. I'm making the movie I want to make movie. And the nominees are, there's only one nominee, Schizopolis.
And the winner is
Schizopolis. Yeah, Schizopolis deserves a little love here.
It does. It does. We both love it. It's just such a wonderful, baddie, kooky movie that he made because he got fed up with everything and maybe kind of had some sort of creative, artistic breakdown. Also has, I'm going to let you talk about it because I know you love it too, but I will say it probably has one of the best director's commentaries that you can possibly imagine.
Yeah, it's great because it's like, in some ways, interviews with Soderbergh or his director's commentaries, he can seem so kind of relentlessly rational and so cerebral and so thoughtful and so articulate, but he's got a deeply weird side to him. And you'll see it. Not only does he direct Schizopolis, but he performs in Schizopolis, and he does some pretty amazingly ballsy, I will say, things in his performance. He's just there. It makes you realize there's somewhere in that kind of button down seeming guy, there's a deeply weird and amazingly wonderfully weird individual in there, and he like lets it all fly in Schizopolis. And also, like, a great thing to read if people want to explore that part of Soderbergh's career is the book he did kind of with and about Richard Lester. It's called Getting Away with It, or The Further Adventures of The Luckiest Bastard You Ever Saw. Early in his career, before he was making movies quite as quickly as he is now, Soderbergh was a prolific diarist, and he sometimes published parts of his diaries, both in this book and in the screenplay companion to Sex, Lies, and Videotape. And it's just great insight into his working methods and the stories of these movies being made, but also just his personality and his sense of humor, and just makes him, I don't know, it's great, rich material. Schizopolis it's kind of the dream summer we should all have, right? Like going back to our hometown, recruiting a gang of friends and running around making a low budget movie without thinking about anything else but our own pleasure in storytelling and filmmaking. It is maybe not quite his most accessible thing that he's ever done, but it's worth the watch. I find it very, very funny and eminently watchable.
And to 2 points that you said, like something you brought up before, what's kind of great about Schizopolis and the accompanying book that you mentioned, like it goes back to your point about him having this breakdown after the Underneath, and you see a young artist figuring it out, which is pretty fascinating. I think it's kind of cool. You put those pieces together and you figure out, like you see him figuring out what he wants to do and how he wants to do it. And it's pretty neat. And, but yeah, going to your other point about him being a diarist and his humor, that's why we couldn't have this finale without mentioning our good friend Manohla Dargis, who we think is a great critic. Don't get us wrong, but she was always this person, Keir, who's always like, oh, that stuffy academic Soderbergh is dry and at it again. And we're like, I don't know where people get this idea from, because he is so rational. Like you said, he comes off as like this ultimate pragmatist most of the time, but then if you just peel that back just like a little bit, there is a deeply weird guy beneath that.
I mean,
and fun
some of her
guy
comments have just made me wonder, like, did she watch Logan Lucky without laughing? I mean, did she see that as a formal experiment? I don't get it.
No, I don't get it. But yeah, it just kind of like, we've always butted heads with that. She became kind of the mascot for that idea that Soderbergh is the stuffy academic, when he is like really fun and funny and risk-taking and bold and daring. And it's like all those things for some people just right over their head, just miss it completely.
Even the best critics can't be right about everything.
Absolutely. So Keir, so far, the Sodies have really paid tribute to Soderbergh's independent experimental streak. I'd say the remaining categories remind us that, speaking of our good friend Manohla Dargis and like how he's perceived, it can remind us if he can also be a commercially successful hitmaker. So Keir, what do we got?
You're absolutely right. And our next category is going to reflect that, because the next category is Best Partnership with a Male Heartthrob. We have, for this one, 2 nominees, George Clooney and Channing Tatum. And of course, George Clooney, a very fruitful, long-lasting partnership that didn't just include the Ocean's movies, but also things like Solaris and The Good German. They even formed a production company together called Section 8 that also produced films that were not directed by Steven Soderbergh. It was a bromance for the ages. And then, I don't think it all went sour. I don't think there was ever a big breakup. But at some point, a director's eye strays to new man candy. And then he got involved with Channing Tatum and made Magic Mike and Side Effects and Logan Lucky. 3 Magic Mike movies. So, they didn't form a production company together. But clearly, again, somebody that, another handsome leading man that Soderbergh found maybe muse-worthy.
Yeah, it's funny that like both of them he made his 2 trilogies with. It's kind of it's kind of strange. I never thought about that. But who gets lost in this, Keir, unfortunately? The victim, he got Clooney'd and he got Tatumed, is Matt Damon. Poor Matt Damon.
The third wheel on the love triangle, or what? Yeah, but when he's working with Soderbergh, he's really not doing it in heartthrob mode typically. Like, who is it? We were talking to Blake Howard maybe, and he was sort of saying like, yeah, it's weird because like Damon can be a leading man, obviously. Witness the Bourne movies. But I don't think he gets placed as like the heartthrob. He's a little goofier looking. He's not quite as sexy, but he also loves to play weirdos. Um, I mean, look no further than The Informant. But he's been such a repeat collaborator of Soderbergh. I think he's made the most cameos or appearances in Soderbergh films. Many of them, however, are not even credited. Sometimes he just shows up and delivers a big monologue at the end of a movie. Uh, you know, but sometimes he plays the lead. But I think we're fairly going to keep him out of the heartthrob category here.
Yeah, unfortunately, but it has we have I think deepened our appreciation of Damon. You know, he has done such tremendous work for Soderbergh. If there's an award for cameos, he would certainly win. Because I mean, look at I mean, even like you said, the monologues at the end, like his role in No Sudden Move,
Yeah.
uh, was incredible, incredible. Like he was just remarkable in that, and he's been just great in whatever he peers in. Just this Renaissance man who can kind of do it all when called upon by his good pal Soderbergh. And yeah, it's kind of as we appreciate Soderbergh more, I think we walk away appreciating Damon a little bit more. He is truly a gifted actor. And I think we both agreed in Informant he should have gotten. He should have got a. If that movie had done better, it just didn't land well. But if that had done better, I think that's the best actor nomination waiting to happen for him.
Yeah, that would have been deserved for sure.
I think so. Yeah. That said, we do have to give a winner to the best heartthrob, Channing Tatum or George Clooney, and the winner is Clooney. You got to go with the OG. You know, the Ocean's flicks made more money than Magic Mike, and Ocean's 12. Maybe this is deciding factor here. It might be Ocean's 12, while bad, is nowhere near as bad as Magic Mike's Last Dance.
Wow, that's a hell of a tiebreaker, right? That is some next level tie breaking. It's like, you got wins and losses, you got point differentials, then you've got the second movie in the Ocean series and the third movie in the Magic Mike series. Yeah, I agree. Clooney's the clear winner. Though we enjoy many of those collaborations quite a bit, but Clooney's the OG.
Oh yeah, I mean sometimes it's not about the highest ceiling; it's about who's got the lowest floor, you know. And Magic Mike's Last Dance is below sea level.
So the next category we have is Best Underdog Story. We have talked a lot this season about how Soderbergh loves him some underdogs, and many of his films fit in this category. Our three nominees are Erin Brockovich, Magic Mike, and Logan Lucky.
Yeah, and the way that we talk about Soderbergh having a keen eye toward people of like lower class, like a Bubble or like a Logan Lucky, and he puts the camera on them without judgment, and he manages to capture them rather than trying to exploit them, I guess you could say, in a way. Like it's sort of the same thing that goes hand in hand with these movies, that he's able to present these underdogs like an Aaron Brockovich or even like a Jack Foley and Out of Sight, all of these characters who are outsiders, more or less. He's good at depicting outsiders, and he makes them still, I think, in lesser hands. They'd have to be this like magical unicorn where they're perfect people who always make the right choice and do the right thing and say the right thing. But these characters are still kind of flawed, still kind of Magic Mike is still kind of messy. Aaron Brockovich is still kind of messy, and I really love that he's always able to be honest, and he has a certain affinity for underdogs / outsiders, and it's always a joy to see him tackle that kind of person.
Yeah, and a great point about Jack Foley. Like you could almost put Out of Sight in this category just because the opener is so similar to the opener in Aaron Brockovich. It's sort of like your underdog meeting somebody in a position of power, getting stymied, and then that sort of propels the movie. It kind of launches the movie. That imbalance in the power dynamic does it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the Sodie for this particular one goes to Aaron Brockovich. This was another very brutal decision for the judges, but Julie Roberts' star power just outshines even two Channing Tatum turns. I guess Channing Tatum will just have to console himself with his looks, his money, and his popularity. Poor bastard.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll weep for Channing Tatum later. Now, Soderbergh does love an underdog, and he also loves a story about con artists. Hence, our next category: best movie about a con artist.
Nice and to the point. Very descriptive category.
Right for it. The nominees for these, I'm sorry, for those waiting at home, that does not include The Laundromat.
Ah,
Sorry. No, thank you. But they do include The Informant, Ocean's 11, Logan Lucky. And the winner for best movie about a con artist is one of our favorites. It's an underdog win, a dark horse win, but we are going with The Informant.
Channing Tatum snubbed again, but hooray for Matt Damon. A very deserved win. Very deserved. Love that performance. Could not love it more. It's, as we've talked about on and off throughout the season, I sometimes just, it's a character whose voice you sometimes hear in your head. It actually has had a small influence on the character voice of the book that I am writing now. It is so funny. It was not appreciated enough when it came out. It deserves a lot of attention. It deserves people going back, rewatching it, reappreciating it, laughing hard, and just appreciating how its mastery of tone. The hardest thing, we talk a lot about tone, the hardest thing to maintain in a movie that is going to be consistently funny from beginning to end is choosing a tone, sticking with that tone, and never breaking character, and that movie delivers.
Yeah, and it still manages to feel like honest and real, like despite the zaniness to it, and it feels real because it's actually a real story, believe it or not, uh, which is crazy. This whole lysine price fixing thing, which is one of the most kind of boring subjects that you can tackle, but like so many Soderbergh things, he finds a very interesting way in through character or distillation of information or both. And Informant nails it, nails the tone. It's a cast just stocked with comedians, just like hilariously stocked with funny people that are in this varied roles throughout the movie, just peppered in there. It is all signs pointing you to like this is funny, this is a comedy, and I still think that people kind of missed it. Unfortunately, I'm one of those people. I didn't see it when it came out, so I'm guilty as anyone. But I'm glad we saw it, and my appreciation for it just continues to grow. It's hilarious. Matt Damon's hilarious. The voiceover, I could see us fishing. Like it's so good. It's so good. The bit about the polar bears, like grade A. It doesn't really get much better. Informant's terrific.
Go see it if you haven't seen it already. Hey, and now it's a Sodie winner, the Sodie winning Informant.
Yeah, put that on the 4K, baby.
Yeah. Mike, next I want to throw in a purely commercial category, best box office hit. So, Soderbergh has shown that he can make big budget movies for adults that have nothing to do with comic book franchises. And we spent a lot of time celebrating his independent movies, but I want to celebrate his money makers.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? Not everybody has to direct a Marvel movie. Not all heroes wear capes. Some wear G-strings, like Magic Mike.
So the nominees are 5 films that grossed over 100 million worldwide. I didn't do the forensic accounting to double check. I just did a quick Google, but these kind of pass the sniff test. So Ocean's 11 grossed over 450 million worldwide. Aaron Brockovich grossed over 250 million. Magic Mike grossed over 167 million. Traffic grossed over 100 million, and so did Contagion. So 5 bona fide hits, profitable movies that are very recognizable. Lots of star power. People love them. One of them was won Soderbergh Best Director Oscar. So there we go. And the winner is Ocean's 11. Just a terrifically entertaining, stylish, fun movie that you can watch over and over again. You talked about Clooney kind of being the OG heartthrob that Soderbergh worked with. Hell, Ocean's 11 is kind of the OG, big budget, glitzy movie that Soderbergh made that, it made a lot of money, more money than the other nominees. And, Ocean's 11's got to win something, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about that as we were doing the awards. I mean, like, you can't walk out of a Soderbergh Award ceremony, which I don't know that there'll ever be another, but we can't walk out of this one without giving some sort of award to Ocean's 11. I think you can argue that realistically, and it's not our favorite. We still enjoy Ocean's 11
Oh
a
yeah,
hell of a lot, but like you can argue that it is the Soderbergh movie. If people are going to recognize Steven Soderbergh for anything, I would say the majority of them are going to recognize him for Ocean's 11.
agreed.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how you get around that. Now, speaking of Ocean's 11, Keir is also nominated in our next category, Best Ensemble Performance.
Yeah, and that's another tough one because Soderbergh is not only the master of ensemble movies, but he's the king of repeat business. So, actors love working with him, and they love coming back to work with him again and again. And he calls them again and again, making it really hard to pick a best ensemble because the casts of these movies often have so many recurring actors.
Yeah, and there's a bunch. So let me give a quick list of nominees, and we'll get to a winner. The nominees, though, are Out of Sight. They are Ocean's 11, Logan Lucky, and Contagion. And the Sodi for Best Ensemble goes to, I think this is another surprise pick here, but I'm happy with it. The Best Ensemble Sodi is Contagion.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree. Like I think that might be a little surprising to some, but I think there's a lot to recommend it.
yeah, and I think it's cool that like, it goes to show like just how well Soderbergh works with an ensemble, because in this case he had an ensemble that like he really hadn't worked with before. So like you said, the king of repeat business, but these were a lot of Soderbergh first timers. Law, Winslet, Jennifer Ely, who's especially we've raved about how good she is in Contagion, and she surely is. Cranston, Gwyneth Paltrow.
She's fine.
She's fine. All she did was kick off a pandemic, whatever.
Yeah.
But he still got terrific performances from everyone involved in a movie that we both love. So I'm happy to give an award to Contagion. It's deserved, and I think it just goes to show Soderbergh's power of directing actors. He is a actor's director. We've said that before, and Contagion is just a really sterling example of that.
Absolutely. Well, it's time for our final award, which is the Ne Plus Ultra of Sodies. It's the Best Damn Soderbergh Movie category. And we're not even going to read nominees because the nominees are all Soderbergh movies, and we're not going to read all 36. But we each, in this case, the judges don't have to agree. We each get to award one. I think I know the answer to this, but Mike, who is your winner?
Yeah, so it was my favorite Soderbergh at the beginning of this journey, and I don't like to say that I was inflexible about it because there is a lot of stuff I discovered along the way that I loved, like both of us, Good Germans,
Yeah.
Schizopolis, Bubble. But the favorite Soderbergh, what I think is the quintessential Soderbergh, and it's just a movie that I love because, just preferential. Like it just checks a lot of boxes that are the type of movie that I look for, that I enjoy the most. And that movie is Out of Sight. It will always be my favorite Soderbergh. It's not going to change. I don't know what to say. I love it. It's just a perfect movie. I will go to my grave. It's a perfect, absolutely perfect movie. I wouldn't change a thing. I love every second of it. I love the cast. I love the script. I love the way he shot it, between the warmth of Florida, the gray of Detroit, the execution of the heist, the nonlinear, just enough nonlinear storytelling to keep it interesting and fun. The dialogue is so great. It's clever enough, not too much. Doesn't as I'm sure was the temptation of the time, that mid to late 90s, to really Tarantino it up.
Yeah.
Didn't go too far in that nonsense. It's absolutely exactly pitch perfect. It's everything it needs to be. I love Out of Sight. I always will. Keir, I think I know your best. I think you actually said it at the top of the show, but
Wait, did I? Oh my God.
yeah, I think so. So
Well,
tell us your favorite, Keir.
so I'm very tempted to say the laundromat, but I won't. No, I like you. I wanted to come into this and sort of like demonstrate my ability to like change my mind or grow as a human being. Good luck with that. But I feel like favorites take many years to kind of embed themselves in your psyche. And so they're not going to change overnight or maybe even over the course of a whole year. And so, during this year, I found new favorite Soderbergh movies, and including some like Black Bag, which just came out, is definitely top ranked Soderbergh. It's now one of my favorite Soderbergh movies, but it also, it's so soon that I can't tell whether it's really stood the test of time or whatever. So I'm kind of I'm sticking with my favorite that was always my favorite, which is The Limey, because, like you with Out of Sight, and Out of Sight is a close second for me, but like The Limey to me still just kind of captures the things I love about Soderbergh, like his experimentation and his like the nonlinear storytelling in that I just find so fascinating and so artistic and so poetic. And then some of the visual flair in that movie, the things that he's playing with, like some of the lens things that I still don't even understand, are so interesting to look at, and the kind of overall effect that movie creates on me of this kind of, it's a movie about memory, as we've often discussed. And when I watch it, I feel very transported and kind of out of time and out of myself. And it just creates this mood that I find so uniquely fascinating, even though I've seen it so many times, that it remains my favorite. But that's not to say that I've ruled out that ever changing with me. I find there's a handful of his movies that I just adore, but that one still, just because it's been my favorite for longer, it's still my favorite. But one of the pleasures of this season has been discovering new movies and really appreciating new movies and getting excited about new Soderbergh movies. So it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I mean, Limey's up there for me as well. Yeah, and I was going to ask you, Keir, how many filmographers does it take to change a light bulb?
I don't know, Mike. How many filmographers does it take?
None. We don't change for anyone. But no, that's a dad joke right there. I nailed it. But yeah, no, I mean, it's a relief though. I'll tell you what, that we picked Out of Sight and The Limey, because we were very close to walking out of here with shutting them both out, which would have been a mistake.
That would have been a huge mistake. So they won the biggest awards. They won the biggest Sodies.
Yes, I agree. They walked away with the best award.
Hey everyone, Mike from the Filmographers here with a really cool, really special announcement. On Monday, April 7th, we're going to be introducing Steven Soderbergh's Out of Sight at the Music Box Theater. Now, for those who aren't familiar with the Music Box, it is one of the greatest places to see movies in the country, in the world. It is a historic Chicago landmark, and we are just thrilled and honored to be part of it. So on Monday, April 7th, remember, Out of Sight, one of my favorite Soderberghs. We're going to be there. Maybe I'll be wearing my Music Box sweatshirt. For more information, though, visit musicboxtheater.com and join us for Out of Sight at the historic Music Box Theater.
Well, that is a wrap for today and a wrap for our season of Soderbergh. But the Filmographers Podcast is not going anywhere, so please, dear listeners, stick with us. Our posting schedule will slow down a little bit while we research and prepare for season 2, but don't worry, we'll be doing lots of new movie reviews. The Ballad of Wallace Island is coming soon, as a matter of fact, and we'll have interviews and even more. And hell, we're not even done with Soderbergh. We've got our Good German commentary coming next week, available exclusively on our Patreon.
And if you're in Chicago, please come watch Out of Sight with us at the Music Box Theater at 7 p.m. on April 7th. We'll be introducing the movie, and then we'll settle in to watch it on beautiful 35mm film. And if you can't make it then, come watch Traffic with us at the Lake Street Theater on April 23rd.
As always, you can find us on Blue Sky, Instagram, and even TikTok. Or just send us an old-fashioned email at thefilmographerspodcast@gmail.com.
But the best place to connect with us is Patreon, where you'll find all our episodes, merch, and more. We're at patreon.com, The Filmographers Podcast. That's patreon.com, The Filmographers Podcast. And thank you very much to our newest Patreon subscribers.
And thank you, as always, to Kevin Lau, our wonderful producer, Gompson, who composed and played our theme music, and Cosmo Graff, who designed our logo and our merch. Until next time, thank you for joining us.